This question would be near the end of the no calculator section, so we would expect it to be hard. It probably looks hard to you. We've got these kind of weird equations, we've got inequalities, it's just like a lot. But for me, this is extremely easy because I know exactly what I'm looking at. I don't notice the inequalities, I don't know any of that. All I see is that I have a bunch of equations in the choices, and what is a graph but a collection of points? And my favorite strategy for the math section is to plug points into equations. So it still applies even when the equations are inequalities, okay? We can still do that. Now, normally when we do that, we pick points that lie on the line or on the graph. Here, that's not as helpful because all of the inequalities are less than or greater than or equal to, right? So all of them are going to tell me that I've got the right point if I pick a point on the line. So instead, let's focus on the shading. We want to find points that are within that shaded region because that means that that point is included in the solution and it should also work in the equation that we plug it into. So I'm going to start somewhere simple. Let's start with this point right here, which is in the shaded region, and that is the point -2, 0. So my x is -2, my y is 0, and this should produce a valid inequality when we plug it into all these answer choices. So because the 0 is the y, that makes the y's just kind of disappear, which is good. So choice A is just going to be -2 is greater than or equal to 0. Well, that's not true. -2 is less than 0, not greater than it, so that gets rid of choice A just like that. Now let's keep going. Choice B is going to be -2 is less than or equal to 0. So that is true. That's okay. I can't just pick B yet. It might be the case that this point works in multiple answers, so you have to be thorough and check everything. But let's look at choice C. That's going to be -2, again, is greater than or equal to 0. No, that's not correct. That gets rid of that choice. Now with D, we do need to be careful because we have a negative in the number that we're plugging in and a negative in the equation itself. So let's just be thorough here. -2 minus 0 is greater than or equal to 0. Okay, well, negative of a negative is a positive. So this is telling me 2 is greater than or equal to 0, which is also true. So I expected this to happen. Whenever we plug points into equations, you shouldn't be surprised when two answers work. That's okay. Don't panic. Just pick a new point. Let's instead flip the x and the y this time. Let's do the point 0, -2 and see what happens, okay? So we're doing similar numbers. We don't need to try choices A and C because we already proved them wrong, so we're just doing B and D. And so in B, again, we got to be careful with that double negative. 0 minus -2 is less than or equal to 0. 0 minus -2 is the same as 0 plus 2, so this is telling me 2 is less than or equal to 0. That is not true, so B does not look good. Let's just double check by doing D. It doesn't really take much of an effort. So -0 minus -2 is greater than or equal to 0. -2 is +2, and there you have it. 2 is greater than or equal to 0. 2 is greater than 0. We are done. That is the answer. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff about inequalities and different lines, and y equals mx plus b can kind of factor in here, but none of it even came into our mind because right away when I saw this question, I got excited because I saw points and I saw equations, and I know my favorite strategy is to plug points into equations. Look for it. Look for those opportunities. You'll be surprised how often this strategy works.